Edu Arctic2, Polar Research for Education, innovative program in Poland and Norway. Webinars.
Okay, yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's seminar, which is animal adaptations to Arctic life. I saw that I hadn't a first slide, so we will go straight to the topics. My name is Edu Arctic2, and I work as head of research at a department in Norwegian Institute for Bioeconomy. I'm situated here in Tromsø, north of Norway. So very far north in Norway we are situated, but the NIBIO has stations all over Norway. I used to work with Arctic mammals and Arctic animals. I still do that, but now I work with gray geese, or gray-leg geese, which is also, you also see them where you live in Southern Europe. Let's just start. If you want to ask me questions on the chat as we go along, just do that. If I don't see the question, I can answer it later. If it's too many questions, then maybe I just have to wait to answer them, but you can just write a question in the chat and I will ask it as I answer it as I proceed. Okay, we are talking about animal adaptations to a life in the Arctic. And first of all, we need to know a little bit about what is the Arctic. The climate of the Arctic. As you might know, we all think about the Arctic as an area with long, cold winters and short, cool summers. The definition of the Arctic is related to the temperature, which says that the average daily summer temperature measured in July does not increase 10 degrees Celsius. So if that is the case, then you are in the Arctic. But of course, there's large amount of variability in climate across the Arctic. You have extremes of solar radiation in both summer and winter. Some parts of the Arctic are covered by ice, sea ice, glacial ice, or snow year round, and some are not. A lot of places you have rich fauna with a lot of flowers in the summer. Nearly all parts of the Arctic experience long periods with some form of ice on the surface. And the Arctic consists of an ocean, mainly an ocean, that is largely surrounded by land. So in the Arctic, there's a lot of ocean. And seawater can never have a temperature below -2 degrees Celsius, or actually -1.8. And the reason for that is that seawater has a lot of salt in it. And the salt, which is dissolved in the water, will disrupt the building of ice crystals. So that lowers the freezing point to -2 compared to fresh water, which freezes at 0 degrees. So if I go, if we look at the light, I should have said that, of course, that on the right side here, you have a picture from the west ice in this area here, where the fresh water in the sea freezes out and makes ice. And this ice is floating on the sea, so you have approximately a deep of 2,000 meters under here. But this is an area which is semi-land, and a lot of different animals can live on this around these ice floats. And as I talked to you about, that the 10 degrees isotherm in July, that the average summer temperature in July does not increase 10 degrees Celsius. That is the border of the Arctic, which you can see here with the red line. Just have to go through that. If you look at, if you look at the light of the Arctic, that's also special. because of how the sun, the angle of the sun sends its radiation to Earth and the tilting of the Earth, you have periods during the season in the Arctic where you have continuous light. You can see here, this is the latitude, and you can also find your own latitude. In Tromsø, we are situated here in this line. So in Tromsø, we have continuous daylight from approximately starting of 1st, 3rd of May until the end of July. Then we have continuous daylight and the sun is above the horizon 24 hours a day. But we also have periods with no daylight where the sun is not above the horizon. And this is also very important for animals to adapt to, because when you have no light clues to tell you what time of day it is, either continuous light or no daylight, then you have to adapt to these seasons coming on, because when it's winter, it will be less and less hours of daylight every day until the end of or beginning of October, 1/3 of October. Then you have periods with no daylight, and this increases until November, December, where you have absolutely no light at all. So this can tell animals what kind of season to expect, the changing hours of daylight during the day. To survive and reproduce in this climate, what do you need? Your body, that is your organs and how they work together, must be specifically designed to cope with this, as well as your behavior. Your behavior must also be specifically designed to be able to survive and reproduce in this climate. And if all this is present, then we say that the animal is adapted to its surroundings. And it doesn't, of course, mean only the Arctic. It's the same in the desert, in the Sahara Desert. You need to have a body that is designed to live there, and you need to have a behavior that is also designed to survive in that area. For a species to kind of be successfully adapted to a climate or a geographical area, then we say that it has to be able to reproduce there, unless it's just visiting the area. We have two kinds of animals if you divide them broadly. You have homothermic animals, warm-blooded. They have the same body temperature all the time. And you have heterothermic animals, which is cold-blooded, and their body temperature changes with the temperature in the surroundings. So the warm-blooded animals, they have typically core temperatures between 35 and 39 degrees Celsius. Birds have the highest, approximately around 39. So cold-blooded, the core body temperature vary. And when I'm talking about core body temperature, that is around the most vital organs like the lungs, the heart, and also the brain. That is where the core temperature, for instance, in my body now, down here on my hand, it's maybe 31, 32 degrees. It's not 37. It's only here, which is 37. Okay, if you are homothermic, you need to use energy to keep a steady body temperature. If you are heterothermic, you do not need to do that. You change your body temperature with the surroundings. You need to keep your body temperature stable regardless of the temperature in the surroundings if you are homothermic, and you don't have to think about that if you are heterothermic. Activity level in a homothermic animal is not affected by the temperature in the surroundings, meaning that if it's very cold, an animal can still be very active and search for food. But in heterothermic animals, the body temperature will then go down because the surrounding temperature is going down, and then this affects the biological systems through a QT effect, meaning that when the temperature decreases, the activity of biological processes slows down. So that means that heterothermic animals like this crocodile in a lake that's been frozen during the night, it's completely inactive until the body temperature increases again. But in these warm-blooded animals like the seal or the beluga whale, they are still very active and still have 37 degrees body temperature in ice water, which is, as you know now, minus 2 degrees Celsius. So that means that the homothermic animals, they need relatively steady supply of food to maintain this production of heat, which they need. But the heterothermic does not need that. They can eat less and doesn't need to eat as much if they have low temperature and are not active. Examples for homothermic animals, human, whale, seal, bird, rodents, in general, mammals and birds. And heterothermic, in general, reptiles, amphibians, and teleosts, which is fish. If you look at an interesting example, the tree frog, which actually you have a population in Alaska, 64.8 degrees north. The average January temperature low is minus 28. I had a question there. Can I see that again? A little bit difficult terms. Yeah, explain more. Was that correct? Ja.
Det var jeg som sa at de måtte bare spørre hvis de syns
Ja,
det
OK.
var vanskelig.
Ja. Jeg så bare den forsvant, skjønner du. So the tree frog, you have an Alaskan population. The average January low temperature is minus 28 degrees Celsius. The highest average January temperature is minus 19, which is measured. And it's heavy snowfall, as you can see, 174 centimeters. And you also have a population of tree frog further south. But it actually overwinters on land, and it's a heterothermic animal, meaning that the body temperature is the same as the surroundings. They contain a lot of glycerol, and when the winter is, glycerol is maybe the English word, when the winter approaches, they start to produce glycerol and store it in the body. And you will see now why. Because that will prevent freezing. If you have a lot of if this is the tree frog and it starts to get colder and colder, and meaning that the body temperature is decreasing and you are now approaching the freezing temperature, then the glycerol will concentrate in the internal important organs and prevent ice formation around and in these organs, because ice formation will disrupt the cells and maybe destroy the organs. So it's very important for the tree frog that the ice formation inside the body happens outside of the core organs. So after 24 hours, this tree frog is now in frozen, where up to 65% of the body water is frozen. And then it will just hibernate in this almost no activity whatsoever in any cell, but actually enough that it will survive. Because when the spring comes after a long winter, this frog will thaw up and the ice will go away slowly, and then the temperature will increase slowly, and then actually it will come to life again. So that's an adaptation to survive during the rough winters when you are a heterothermic animal in this area. If you look at a homothermic animal like the Arctic ground squirrel, to avoid periods where there's no food, very cold, it can actually go into hibernation. And what is hibernation? Well, when you hibernate, you decrease the activity in your organs, but you choose to do that because actually you're a homothermic animal that can turn off organs turn off activity, then you decreases the energy demand in these organs, and then you hibernate. And you look at this temperature scale, the medium body temperature for the Arctic ground squirrel is approximately 37-38 degrees. And you can now see that turning off these different organs will allow the body temperature to decrease, and then it saves a lot of energy. That's hibernation. And the brain temperature in this hibernating Arctic ground squirrel can actually be just above 0 degrees Celsius, and just to prevent freezing in the brain. And the brain is actually one of the organs we have that demands most oxygen and most energy. So if you can turn the brain off, then you save a lot of energy. But as you can see here, in regular intervals, the animal has to warm up again. And this is, we think, we don't know, but we think it is to prevent permanent damage to the organs. You have to reheat them. Just like a car, you have to start the engine now and then to check so that the car is okay, it works, and you can turn it off again. So that's what happened also here. The body core temperature is actually minus 2.9 degrees. And that is also very low. But in the Arctic ground squirrels, there's a lot of small molecules that prevent ice to build in sharp spears, so it doesn't destroy the cells. So the ice formation in the Arctic ground squirrel is more round crystal, which is just takes space. It doesn't destroy the cells. And during hibernation, it has 1 heartbeat per minute. No ice formation in the heart, or no ice formation. When I said ice formation, it's actually in the digestive system, not around the digestive system. It's only in the digestive system that you have ice. Yes, as I mentioned, there is a lot of animals living in the Arctic. They're living on land, but they're also living in water, in the seawater. And what is actually the difference between water and air? Why is these two environments so different? If you look at a seal, if you cut a seal up, you see a very thick blubber layer, and you see a very thin fur, actually. This animal lives in seawater, and in seawater, as you know, has a temperature of -2, maximum negative temperature, or lowest temperature, but it could be much colder on land. For instance, this Arctic fox can experience temperatures down to -50 degrees. So shouldn't it be colder on land? No. And that is why, because water has a very, very high heat conductivity. Water is a media that is very good at conducting heat. And you might have experienced this. If you go into 0 degrees water, it's much, much colder than 0 degrees air. So water with high heat conductivity actually sucks the heat out of your body. It's like a vacuum cleaner of heat. But air doesn't have this high heat conductivity, so it doesn't feel that cold. If you look at the seal, it cannot use fur as insulation, because fur acts, I will come back to that, but acts to trap air. So you cannot do that in water because the air will be pushed away by the water. So you need some kind of tissue in your body, and then you have fat, you have carbohydrates, and you have proteins. And of these three, fat is the tissue with the lowest heat conductivity, meaning that this tissue conducts heat the lowest of these three. But it's not very good, and that's why you need a lot of it. And that's why the blubber layer of seals and whales can be up to, not seals, but whales can have 20 to 30 centimeters of blubber, just to keep the heat inside the body. So the heat conductivity of the blubber layer is low, so heat very slowly escapes from the body, but you need a lot. The polar fox, which is the best insulated animal in the world, has both long hairs but also woolen hairs close to the skin. So if you trap a lot of air in your fur here, and then you heat this air up with your body heat, let's say that the temperature of the air in the fur is +20, then the surrounding temperature of the polar fox is not -40, but it's +20 degrees Celsius, because the surrounding temperature of this polar fox is the air temperature in the fur just outside the skin. That means that for a polar fox, when we think it's very, very cold and we say that, oh, how is it possible for the Arctic fox to survive when it's -40? It doesn't experience -40. It maybe experience +15 or something, which is actually the surrounding temperature. But then, if it's a lot of wind, then the polar fox has to seek a shelter to avoid that this heated air in the fur is pressed out by new cold air. This is the same way that your jacket works. When you put on your jacket a cold day, the jacket is first cold because the heat inside the jacket is cold, but then you heat up the air in the jacket with your body temperature, and then your surrounding temperature is the temperature of the air in your jacket. So that's why you're not freezing. So also the reindeer, Arctic reindeer, Svalbard reindeer on the right side and domestic reindeer on the left side, they have also very good fur with guard hairs, which is possible to fill. They are air filled, so they can trap air. They have dense underfur, which prevents also body heat loss from the body. Then they have a dark pigmented skin. And why is that? Yes, that's because if you have solar radiation, you know it's much warmer to go with a black t-shirt than a white t-shirt, because the color black, or it's not a color, but I call it color black, absorbs all the heat radiation from the sun, while white will reflect it. And also the reindeer has blubber layer, which acts a little bit as preventing heat from escaping, but also as an energy store. Interestingly enough, you can see that the Svalbard reindeer, they are smaller than the reindeer on land further south. They have shorter snouts, and they have more or less a barrel-shaped body construction. And this is also to prevent heat loss. They have shorter legs, so they are more compact, more like a ball. And so it's interesting to see that the Svalbard reindeer have adapted even more than to prevent heat loss than the reindeer on land. If you are a predator, like the polar bear, here catching a hooded seal, the hooded seal is actually weighing 400 kilos. So the polar bear is pretty big. I think it's 700 kilos maybe. It has the same construction of the fur as we have now seen. It has this also blubber layer, depending on how much energy it has. But for this animal, it's perfect. It has a white skin, a white fur, which is camouflage, and then it has black skin, which could absorb all the heat radiation from the sun. Okay, now we will go to look a little bit on the true seals, which are the super divers among mammals. They are actually able to dive for 1 hour in ice water, and actually down to 1,500 meters, which is very deep. And they have lungs, as we do, so they breathe in air. And it's very interesting to kind of find out how are they able to do that. So what do you need if you're going down to 1,500 meters and staying under water for 1 hour and you have lungs? You need something to do there, of course, and they are going down there to eat. You need to keep warm, as we have already talked a lot about, and you need to hold your breath long enough. Well, that's not the same as we, but I will come back to that. You need, of course, to bring enough oxygen, and the oxygen stores in your body needs to be very good, and you need to fill them really good up before you go down. And you have to do something about the pressure. As you might know, you feel that when you dive in the pool, when you go down to 4 meters, you have a pressure in the pressure increases because of the weight of the water column, and that can hurt your ears, especially for us. So what does the seal got that you don't? For instance, just saying that the record for a human to stay underwater without breathing, I think it's now 15 minutes or something. And it has the human has to train a very long time to be able to do that, and not everyone is able to do that. But seal, 1 hour, no problem. Okay, what does the seal got that you don't? It has much more blood than we do. We have 5% of our body mass is blood. For a seal, it could be 15-20% of the body mass, which is blood. And in the blood, you have a molecule called hemoglobin, which you might have heard of, which actually stores oxygen. Meaning that if you have more blood, you have more hemoglobin, and then you can store more oxygen. Shown here, inside a red blood cell, you have hemoglobin molecules that store oxygen molecules, the blue ones. And each hemoglobin can actually store 4 oxygen molecules. The seals have also huge amounts of myoglobin, which gives them black muscle or black meat. A chicken has no myoglobin in the muscle cells whatsoever, and that's why the chicken meat is white. Myoglobin, you can hear from the word, is related to hemoglobin. It's also a molecule which stores oxygen, but that molecule can only store 1 oxygen. But then you have oxygen stores inside your muscle cells as well. Okay, when you dive and I'm not breathing, your oxygen will be used up and the oxygen levels will go down. At the same time, the carbon dioxide levels will go up because you are not getting rid of carbon dioxide. So the seal has the ability to suppress the urge to breathe, because in our case, for humans, when oxygen levels are going down and CO2 levels are going up, in the end, you have to breathe. The body takes over and takes control and forces you to breathe. And if you're underwater, you will drown. But the seals have the ability to suppress this urge to breathe. They are in control. It's not the brain that takes over. Then they have an extreme, we call it redistribution of blood volume, meaning that a diving seal is not giving blood to all its organs. For instance, if you're going down to 1,000 meters to eat, you don't need to give blood to your digestive system. And because your digestive system is empty and there is nothing there to digest. So you cut off all the blood supply to the digestive system, and then you can use this blood and the oxygen to the muscles or other purposes when you're diving. And you do that, this is an artery, and in the artery wall, there are rings of muscle. And when these rings of muscle are constricted, then the artery is closed. And in this to the right, if the blood flow is going to the right, these organs here will not receive blood, while this blood on the left side could be redistributed to other organs that need it. And this happens all the time. When you exercise, you delete, or the arteries are opening more and more to get rid of heat. And that's why your skin gets red, because now you have a lot of blood in just under the skin. So you are warm and have exercised, and you are red. To take care of the lactic acid which is produced, it's always produced lactic acid when we exercise and also when the seal dives, then they buffer this up. They have systems that soaks this lactic acid up so it doesn't affect your muscles. And also very interesting, we found this out for only, I think, 15 years ago, to avoid this pain in the air because of the extreme pressure when you go down to 1,000 meters. Then the seals and also the whales have a small tissue, piece of tissue in the middle ear, because in the middle ear you have air, and air you can compress. When you compress air, the pressure increases, and that gives the pain that you feel. But fluid is incompressible. So if you fill this small tissue piece in the middle ear with blood, then it's fluid there. And then you don't feel this pain anymore because fluid is incompressible. So they have a small adaptation there. And they can also lower their brain temperature a little bit, 1 degree Celsius, 2 degrees Celsius, and that saves a lot of oxygen. And you've of course heard about the diving sickness, the bends. That is because of nitrogen gas, which, as you might know, of the air that we have around us, we have 80% nitrogen gas, 19%, 20% oxygen, and 0.03% CO2. But the nitrogen gas, when that starts to bubble in the blood because the pressure decreases, for instance, when you're going up to the surface, then this will bubble, go out of the fluid, and then it could actually disrupt some blood vessels and you can die. But this is avoided in the seal because it doesn't breathe, so it doesn't get more nitrogen gas than it's already there. But in the pipes going to the lungs, there is a lot of air which could be actually pressed down in the lungs and into the blood, but they are so enforced, these bronchi in the seal, that doesn't happen. Yeah. So I see that the time is running here. But you have an urge for food down there. You have a lot of fat. This is to avoid heat loss. And you have good countercurrent heat exchanges. I have to tell you what that is. You can see this as a bird, but also as a seal with the flippers. But this is a bird. As you have seen, they can stand on ice for very long periods of time. And wonder a little bit about, doesn't all the heat just disappear through the legs? And it doesn't help with a good fur and blubber layer and everything if you have this. But in all extremities of Arctic mammals and birds, you have countercurrent heat exchangers, which prevents heat loss from the flippers, the legs, the nose, all these areas of the body which is not covered in blubber or fur. And if you look at the bird and you go into the leg, you see that here you have blood vessels going down to the leg to give the leg cells energy and oxygen, and to take away waste molecules and carbon dioxide. The vein, the vessel that takes the blood back to the body, is very close to the artery taking warm, energy-rich blood to the foot. And what happens is that the artery, which has a blood temperature inside of 35 in the beginning, gives heat to the vein blood, which is going back to the body. Meaning that the vein blood, which is maybe 1 degree Celsius down in the foot here, it will be heated going into the body. So when this blood is entering the body here, the temperature is actually 33 degrees Celsius. And when the blood in the artery is entering the foot, the temperature of this blood is actually down to 3 degrees, meaning that the heat is actually conserved in the body because of this counter-current heat exchanger. Counter-current, one current going this way and one current going the opposite way, and the heat is kept in the body. So that's a very important adaptation. We also have that, humans, but not very well adapted anymore. Okay, I think I have to stop there because I've talked in 40 minutes, so we might have some quick questions. I haven't seen any questions on the chat during the talk, but please just ask me questions if you have some.
Watch other recordings from webinars on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/EduArctic. Edu Arctic2, from polar research to scientific passion, innovative nature education in Poland and Norway receives a grant of 240,000 euros received from Iceland, Liechtenstein and Norway under EEA funds.